The Valorian space station hung in the void like a pretentious chandelier, all crystalline spires and unnecessary architectural flourishes that screamed, "We have money and want everyone to know it." It orbited a neutron star because apparently regular stars weren't dramatic enough for the Galactic Superiority Summit. Yes, that was the actual name. No one had bothered with subtlety in about 3 centuries. Inside the station's grand amphitheater, representatives from 47 species gathered to discuss matters of extreme importance, which mostly meant arguing about who deserved the best trade routes and whose military deserved the most respect. The air recyclers worked overtime, processing everything from methane breathers to the chlorine-dependent screeth, who insisted on attending despite making everyone's eyes water. Humans had been part of this circus for exactly 12 years. 12 long, tedious years of being the punchline to every cosmic joke. The girl who walked into the amphitheater that day wore a simple gray scarf wrapped around her neck, despite the climate-controlled environment. She was young by human standards, maybe 25 rotations, with dark hair pulled back in a practical bun and eyes that suggested she'd rather be literally anywhere else. Her delegation badge identified her as representing Earth's Pacific territories, which made several alien delegates chuckle because Earth couldn't even unify its own continents, let alone command respect on the galactic stage. The Thoraxians noticed her first. They always did. Those chitinous overachievers with their compound eyes and superiority complexes the size of gas giants. Their lead delegate, Ambassador Zilthor, made a clicking sound that translated to amusement. "Another human hatchling," he announced to no one in particular, which meant he wanted everyone to hear. "Tell me, small one, did your elders send you because they were too embarrassed to attend themselves?" The amphitheater's translation matrix carried his words in 47 languages simultaneously. Laughter rippled through the assembled delegates in various pitches and frequencies. The Vrelnari, who looked like bipedal starfish made of liquid mercury, made their gurgling laugh sound. The Korvax, bird-like creatures with 4 wings and attitudes to match, ruffled their feathers in what passed for their version of a chuckle. The human girl found her designated seat in the 3rd tier, which was galactic code for, "We acknowledge you exist, but wish you didn't." She sat down with deliberate calm, adjusting her scarf slightly. No response. Pressed a Vrelnari delegate named Sholimar. How typical. Humans never know what to say when confronted with their inadequacy. "Perhaps she doesn't understand the translation matrix," suggested a Korvax representative, Krizath, with mock concern. "Their brains are so primitive. Single-threaded consciousness, can you imagine? They can barely think about 2 things simultaneously." The girl pulled out a data tablet and began reviewing documents as if she were alone in her quarters. This, of course, made things worse. Ambassador Zilthor descended from his 1st-tier seat, his 6 legs carrying him with theatrical precision toward the human section. He wasn't alone. When blood was in the water, sharks came from everywhere, and the Galactic Superiority Summit had more sharks than a feeding frenzy. "Ignoring us now." Zilthor positioned himself directly in front of her seat. How wonderfully human. When faced with superior beings, simply pretend they don't exist. The girl looked up from her tablet. Her expression was the kind of carefully neutral that came from practice, from sitting through countless meetings just like this one. "Ambassador Zilthor, your exoskeleton is looking particularly shiny today. New polish?" Several delegates made surprised sounds. Humans didn't usually engage. "Do not attempt your species' primitive humor with me." Zilthor's mandibles clicked irritably. "We are discussing serious matters today. The redistribution of the Andromeda Corridor trade routes. These are conversations for species with actual accomplishments, not upright primates who barely mastered faster-than-light travel. We've been FTL capable for 50 years, the girl said mildly. 50 years. Krizath swooped down to join the gathering crowd. My people achieved FTL capability 8,000 years ago. The Thoraxians, 10,000. Even the Grell managed it 3,000 years back, and they're essentially mobile fungus colonies. Hey, protested a Grell delegate from the upper tiers, though without much heat. Even they knew their reputation. The girl set down her tablet. Is there a point to this conversation, or are we just measuring temporal appendages? The point, said a new voice, deep and resonant, is that humanity has no place in these negotiations. The speaker was Krallick's ambassador Vorneth, and when a Krallick spoke, people listened. They were 8 feet tall, crystalline beings whose bodies refracted light into rainbow patterns. Beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. They were also the current military hegemon of the local cluster, commanding a fleet that could crack planets. Vorneth descended to the central floor, and the crowd parted instinctively. Crystalline feet chimed against the metallic floor like funeral bells. You speak of accomplishments, Vorneth continued, addressing the girl directly. What has humanity accomplished? You have no unique technology. Your military is laughable, scattered across a single system because you still fight among yourselves. Your genetics are baseline carbon form, nothing special. You have no psionic capability, no natural armor, no enhanced longevity. You are, in every measurable way, the least impressive species in this chamber. The girl stood up. She was barely 5.5 feet tall, which put her at about chest height to Vorneth's crystalline torso. The scarf around her neck shifted slightly with the movement. Correct on all counts, she said. That stopped Vorneth mid-speech. Aliens didn't expect humans to agree with criticism. They expected defensiveness, anger, those emotional outbursts that confirmed every stereotype. Then you admit humanity's inferiority? Silthor clicked eagerly. I admit we're not the strongest, fastest, or oldest species here, the girl said. But this is a trade negotiation, not a bodybuilding competition. Or did I miss a memo? Trade requires leverage, Vorneth said coldly. What leverage does humanity possess? What could you possibly offer that we cannot obtain more easily elsewhere? Cultural exports, suggested Sholimar with that gurgling laugh. I've sampled human entertainment. Crude violence and mating rituals, nothing more. Scientific innovation? Krizath's feathers ruffled. They're still working out quantum mechanics we solved millennia ago. Military alliance? Zilthor's mandibles spread in what passed for a Thoraxian grin. I've seen their warships. Adorable little things. Like watching larvae play with sticks. The girl let them talk. She'd learned early in her diplomatic career that aliens loved the sound of their own voices, loved the performance of superiority. Let them exhaust themselves with rhetoric while she conserved energy for what mattered. Perhaps, Vorneth said, his crystalline form glowing with increased intensity, we should formalize this. A challenge, as is traditional in summit disputes. If humanity wishes to maintain their coalition seat and access to the Andromeda corridor, prove you deserve it. The amphitheater went silent. Challenges were serious business, ancient traditions that predated most current governments. They could range from intellectual contests to actual combat, depending on what was agreed upon. They were binding under galactic law. What kind of challenge? The girl asked calmly. A demonstration of capability, Vorneth said. 3 trials. First, a strategic simulation. Second, a test of physical capability. Third, direct combat against a champion of our choosing. Win 2 of 3, and humanity keeps their seat and trade access. Lose, and you withdraw your claim to the Andromeda routes for the next century. That's not a fair challenge, protested a voice from the upper tiers. It came from Ambassador Thelnari of the Quirex, a species that looked like ambulatory crystal formations with far better dispositions than the Kralix. The Kralix are notorious for combat challenges. This is designed to humiliate, not test merit. If humanity cannot defend itself, it has no business in coalition politics, Vorneth countered. These are dangerous times. The Outer Rim factions grow bolder. We need allies who can fight, not passengers who need protection. The girl looked at Vorneth for a long moment. Behind her neutral expression, calculations ran. This was a trap, obviously. The Kralix wanted humanity's corridor access for themselves and were manufacturing a reason to strip it away. They'd been lobbying against human inclusion since day one. But refusing would be worse. It would confirm every accusation of weakness, every sneer about human inadequacy. I accept, she said. The amphitheater erupted in reactions. Some aliens seemed pleased at the prospect of entertainment. Others looked concerned. The Quirex delegation appeared outright worried. Zilthor's mandibles clicked rapidly. This will be over in moments. I'm almost disappointed. I hoped humanity would provide amusement for longer. I'm taking bets, announced a Grell delegate, because of course they were. The Grell loved gambling almost as much as they loved decomposing organic matter. Current odds, 50-1 against the human. I'll take 100 credits on the Kralix champion, Krizoth called out. 200 here, added Sholimar. The girl ignored the betting pool forming around her potential defeat. She walked to the center floor where Vorneth waited, her movements economical and precise. The scarf around her neck fluttered slightly with the motion. We begin with the strategic simulation, Vorneth announced. The amphitheater's central floor shimmered and transformed into a holographic display. A star system appeared, complete with planets, asteroid fields, and 2 opposing fleets. A classic scenario. You command the Red Fleet, 15 ships. I command the Blue Fleet, 30 ships. Objective: secure the central planet. You may begin. The girl studied the display for exactly 10 seconds. Then her hands moved through the holographic interface, issuing commands with startling speed. Her Red Fleet split into 3 groups, 2 moving to flank positions, while the third dove toward the asteroid field. Vorneth's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been approval or amusement. His Blue Fleet moved in a standard envelopment pattern, using superior numbers to box in the smaller force. Except the Red Fleet wasn't there anymore. The group that had entered the asteroid field emerged behind Vorneth's formation, weapons hot, while the flanking groups had used gravity assists from the outer planets to build unexpected velocity. The simulation ran at accelerated speed. Within 3 minutes of real time, Vorneth's fleet was scattered, his supply lines cut, and the central planet blockaded by red forces. Silence filled the amphitheater. Interesting, Vorneth said, and there was something new in his voice. Not quite respect, but definitely not contempt. You use the Takashi Gambit, modified for numerical disadvantage. Clever. But simulations are not reality. Physical capability matters. Second trial. The holographic display dissolved. In its place, the floor reconfigured into an obstacle course. It looked like something designed by a sadistic architect on hallucinogens. Walls that shifted, platforms that disappeared, gravity fields that rotated, All while, automated defense systems fired stun rounds. "Complete the course," Vorneth said. "Under 2 minutes, or you fail this trial." The girl looked at the course, then at her standard diplomatic attire. She wore simple clothes, practical boots, that ever-present scarf. Not exactly athletic gear. "Any trial gets 1 preparation minute," she said, citing coalition rules. "Granted." She used the minute to stretch, methodical movements that suggested actual training rather than casual exercise. She rolled her shoulders, adjusted her scarf to ensure it was secure, then positioned herself at the starting line. The timer began. She moved, not like a diplomat, not like some bureaucrat playing at athleticism. She moved like someone who'd spent years training their body into a precision instrument. The first wall came at her fast, shifting left to block her path. She anticipated it, sliding right and using a platform edge to vault upward. A gravity field activated, trying to pull her down. She tucked and rolled with the force, converting falling into forward momentum. Stun rounds came from 3 angles. She was already moving, her body flowing through spaces that seemed too narrow. Timing that seemed too precise. A platform disappeared beneath her feet. She'd already jumped, catching a handhold on an overhead beam that most competitors wouldn't have noticed. The Thoraxians stopped clicking. The Korvax stopped ruffling. Even the Grell stopped taking bets, too absorbed in watching this human girl navigate a course designed to challenge species with natural advantages she completely lacked. She hit the final platform with exactly 3 seconds to spare, breathing hard but standing. 1 minute, 54 seconds, announced the amphitheater's neutral AI. Trial passed. Vorneth's crystalline body refracted light in sharp, angular patterns. Impressive, but physical skill without combat capability is meaningless. Final trial, direct combat. You will face our champion. A door opened in the amphitheater wall. What emerged made several delegates gasp. The Krallick's champion was named Zoreth, and he was a nightmare given crystalline form. Where Vorneth was 8 feet of diplomatic elegance, Zoreth was 9 feet of concentrated violence. His body was darker, denser, his edges sharper. He'd been grown specifically for combat, his form optimized for destruction. Rumors said he'd defeated champions from 17 different species. He looked at the human girl like she was an annoying insect. "This is your champion?" he asked Vorneth, his voice like grinding rocks. "This small thing?" "Humanity's representative," Vorneth confirmed. "She has performed adequately thus far. Do not underestimate her." "Underestimate?" Zoreth laughed, a sound like shattering glass. "I will try not to kill her too quickly." The combat zone activated, a circular arena with energy barriers preventing interference. Inside, any weapon was permitted, any tactic legal. Matches ended with surrender, incapacitation, or death. The girl stepped into the circle. Zoreth followed, his crystalline feet cracking the floor with each step. "Last chance to surrender," he offered, almost kindly. "I have no desire to break something so fragile." She didn't respond. She was checking her scarf, making sure it was secure. Her hands moved with careful precision, adjusting the fabric. Zoreth took this as fear. "Very well. Your death will be quick." He moved. For something 9 feet tall and composed of living crystal, Zoreth was terrifyingly fast. He closed the distance in a heartbeat, one massive arm swinging in an arc designed to incapacitate with a single blow. The girl ducked, but barely. The wind from his strike ruffled her hair. She rolled left, putting distance between them, but Zoreth pursued relentlessly. His combat style was overwhelming force, using his size and strength to simply overpower opponents before they could implement strategy. It was working. The girl was faster, but in the confined arena, there was nowhere to run. Zoreth cornered her against the energy barrier, both arms raised for a finishing strike. She couldn't dodge this one. The angles were wrong, the space too confined. Zoreth brought his arms down like a hammer. The girl's hand moved to her scarf. She pulled it aside. The tattoo on her neck blazed to life. It wasn't ink. It had never been ink. The dragon coiled around the left side of her neck in intricate detail. Scales rendered in what looked like living flame, eyes that glowed with inner fire. As the scarf fell away, the tattoo pulsed with light that made the amphitheater's artificial illumination seem dim by comparison. Zoreth's strike stopped mid-swing. Not because he wanted to stop, because something had caught his arms and was holding them motionless in the air. The dragon tattoo uncoiled. It flowed off the girl's skin like liquid fire, expanding from 2 dimensions into 3, growing from a neck decoration into something vast and terrible. The amphitheater's sensors screamed warnings as energy readings spiked into ranges that shouldn't have been possible for anything biological. The dragon coiled around the girl like a guardian, like a partner, like something far more ancient than the Galactic Superiority Summit or the species who thought themselves so superior. It was made of fire that didn't burn, scales that reflected no light but generated their own, eyes that held intelligence that predated star travel. What is this? Vorneth's voice cracked with something that might have been fear. The girl's voice, when she spoke, harmonized with something deeper, something that resonated with frequencies that made the station's hull vibrate. You asked what humanity brings to the coalition, what leverage we possess. Allow me to demonstrate. The dragon's head, easily the size of an aircar, turned to regard Zoreth. The Kralix champion, notorious for his fearlessness, stumbled backward, his crystalline form actually cracked under the pressure of the dragon's presence. We made a deal, the girl continued, her hand resting on the dragon's scaled neck. Long ago, before your empires rose, when humans were still figuring out fire and agriculture, we met beings far older than any species in this chamber. Beings who remembered when galaxies were young. They liked us, found us interesting. So they offered a compact. Some of us would carry their mark, their partnership. In exchange, we would remember them, honor them, ensure they were never forgotten. The dragon's eyes fixed on the assembled delegates. Several flinched. The Thoraxians' compound eyes went dim with what might have been an evolutionary fear response. The Korvax collectively backed toward the exits. You see us as weak because we have no natural weapons, the girl said. But we've never needed them. We made friends with creatures that could crack worlds. We forged partnerships instead of just dominance. We learned that sometimes the most powerful ability isn't what you can do yourself, but who stands beside you. The dragon inhaled, and the amphitheater's temperature rose 10 degrees. It exhaled, and frost formed on the walls. It existed outside normal physics, a reminder that the universe was far stranger and more dangerous than the carefully controlled politics of the coalition suggested. The trial is ended, the girl said. I believe the term is incapacitation. Zoreth is clearly incapable of continuing. The Kralix champion had retreated to the energy barrier's edge, his crystalline form dull with terror. He nodded frantically. I yield. I yield. Please, I yield. The dragon regarded him for a long moment, then seemed to smile, which was a terrifying thing to witness. It flowed back toward the girl, collapsing dimensions, folding space, until it was once again just a tattoo on her neck. The glow faded, The temperature normalized. The scarf went back into place, covering the mark. The girl stood alone in the center of the arena, slightly winded, but otherwise unmarked. 3 trials, she said into the shocked silence. 3 passes. I believe humanity's coalition seat and corridor access are secure. No one argued. No one even moved. Vorneth was the first to speak, and credit to the Krallick's ambassador, his voice was steady despite circumstances. That was not expected? No, the girl agreed. It usually isn't. You made assumptions based on appearance, on technological development, on what you could easily measure. You never thought to ask what couldn't be measured. Are all humans bonded to these dragons? Asked Thelnari, the Quirex ambassador, with genuine curiosity replacing earlier concern. No, the girl said. Most don't even know about the compact. It's maintained by specific bloodlines passed down through generations. We keep it quiet because, well... She gestured at the still terrified Zoreth. This reaction, basically. People get uncomfortable. Uncomfortable, repeated Silthor weakly. Yes, that is certainly one word for it. How many of you are there? Demanded Vorneth. How many humans carry these bonds? The girl smiled, and it wasn't entirely friendly. Enough. Scattered across Earth, throughout our colonies. Never where you'd expect. That colonist on the mining station. Maybe bonded. That merchant negotiating contracts? Could be bonded. That janitor cleaning your embassy? Well, you get the idea. This changes everything, Sholimar said, his liquid mercury form rippling with agitation. Humanity isn't weak. You've been deliberately concealing your capability. That's deception. That's survival, the girl corrected. We've watched how this coalition treats species they perceive as weak versus species they perceive as strong. We've seen planets annexed, populations enslaved, all because someone decided they weren't powerful enough to deserve autonomy. So yes, we kept some things quiet. We let you think we were harmless. We smiled through the insults and the mockery and the discrimination. And we waited to see what kind of neighbors you'd actually be. She let that sit for a moment, watching 47 species grapple with the realization that they'd catastrophically misjudged the situation. The question now, she continued, is what happens next. Do we continue with these little dominance displays, these challenges and insults? Or do we try something revolutionary, like actual cooperation? Because, I'll be honest, the dragons don't particularly care about the Andromeda Corridor trade routes. They exist outside your economics. But we care. Humanity cares. And we'd prefer to be partners rather than problems. Partners, Vorneth said slowly, as if tasting the word. After we challenged you, insulted you, attempted to humiliate you publicly, you still want partnership? Oh, I didn't say there wouldn't be consequences, the girl said cheerfully. I expect formal apologies from everyone who participated in this little performance. I expect the betting pool profits donated to charities. And I expect much better treatment of human delegates going forward. But yes, after that, partners, we're not really the grudge-holding type. The dragon might disagree, muttered Krizath. The dragon understands proportional response, the girl said. You tested our strength. We demonstrated it. No one died. Everyone learned something. That's actually a pretty good outcome by galactic standards. Thelnari moved forward, his crystalline form much more graceful than the Krallick's warriors. On behalf of the Quirex delegation, I apologize for doubting humanity's worth. We should have looked deeper. One by one, other delegations added their apologies. Some grudging, some genuine, all motivated by the sudden realization that humanity wasn't the harmless newcomer they'd assumed. When it was Vornith's turn, the Kralix ambassador studied the girl for a long moment. "You handled this well. Better than we deserved. The Kralix respect strength, and you have demonstrated it conclusively. You have our apology and our respect." "And the Andromeda corridor access?" she pressed. "Guaranteed," Vornith said, "along with an upgrade to first-tier seating in future summits. We may have been foolish, but we learn from our mistakes." The girl nodded. "Then I believe we're done here. The Pacific Territories delegation will submit our formal proposal for corridor trade agreements tomorrow. I suggest everyone review them with fresh perspectives." She walked toward the amphitheater exit, her diplomatic composure fully restored. As she passed the Grell delegation, the bookie who'd been running the betting pool made a gurgling sound. "About those bets," he said nervously. She paused. "Keep them. Consider it tuition for a valuable lesson about assumptions." The amphitheater doors closed behind her, leaving 47 species to contemplate their suddenly complicated relationship with humanity. In the delegation preparation rooms, the girl finally let her composure slip. She leaned against the wall, breathing deeply, letting the adrenaline drain from her system. The tattoo on her neck pulsed once, warmly, a reassurance from her ancient partner. "That was exhausting," she muttered. The dragon's voice resonated in her mind, audible only to her. It rumbled with amusement. "You performed adequately." "Adequately?" She laughed. "I nearly died of anxiety. When Zorith charged, I thought I'd miscalculated everything." "But you didn't," the dragon said. "You trusted our bond. That's all that was required." "They're going to be paranoid now," she said, "watching every human, wondering who else is bonded." "Good," the dragon said simply. "Fear breeds respect. Respect breeds caution. Caution prevents the kind of careless cruelty you've endured these past years." She couldn't argue with that logic. She adjusted her scarf, ensuring the tattoo was covered again. Time to file reports, brief the actual Pacific Territories delegation head, and prepare for the diplomatic aftermath. Her communicator chimed. A message from Earth's Coalition Command appeared. "Saw the whole thing. Well done. Also, you're terrifying. Please never do that to us." She smiled. At least someone appreciated the performance. 3 days later, the Andromeda Corridor trade agreements passed with unanimous support. Humanity received preferential access to 17 routes, along with favorable tariff rates and priority docking at 5 major station hubs. The Kralix delegation even threw in mining rights to an asteroid belt they'd been hoarding for centuries. Everyone was being very, very nice to the human delegates suddenly. In the amphitheater's central chamber, where negotiations continued on less dramatic matters, the girl sat in her new first-tier seat, reviewing proposals with the same careful attention she'd shown before. Her scarf remained in place. The tattoo stayed hidden. But everyone knew it was there. Zilthor approached, during a recess, his mandibles clicking nervously. "A question, if I may." She looked up from her tablet. "Ambassador." "The dragons," he said quietly. "They're real. They're actually genuinely real. Not metaphor, not technology, but actual ancient beings." "Yes." "How many exist?" She smiled. "Enough." "That's not an answer." "That's the only answer you're getting," she said pleasantly. "Mystery is part of our leverage now. Keep guessing, keep wondering. It'll make you think twice before assuming weakness." Zilthor made a sound that might have been a laugh or a groan. "We deserved this. Everything we get, we completely deserved." Probably, she agreed. But there's good news. Now that we're past the posturing phase, we can actually accomplish things. Your people need agricultural technology for high radiation environments, correct? We've been developing some promising hybrids. Let me send you the research data. You're offering help after everything? That's what partners do, she said. And I meant what I said. We prefer cooperation to conflict. It's just useful if everyone understands that conflict is an option we're prepared for. Later that evening, in her station quarters, the girl recorded her personal log. It was a habit from her early diplomatic days, a way to process the chaos of galactic politics. They finally understand we're not prey, she said to the recorder. It took theatrics and a minor demonstration of apocalyptic capability, but the message landed. Humans are coalition members with full rights and protections. Anyone who wants to test that will deal with consequences they're not prepared for. She paused, considering her words. The funny part? I'm not even a combat specialist. I'm a trade negotiator who happens to carry a dragon bond. If they knew about our actual military specialists, the bonded warriors, the deep cover operatives who've been watching coalition politics for years, they'd completely lose their minds. The tattoo pulsed with warm amusement. But we don't need to tell them that, she continued. Let them think I'm exceptional rather than fairly standard. Let them wonder and worry. Meanwhile, we'll quietly integrate deeper into coalition structures, build actual relationships, and prove that humanity deserves respect through actions rather than just displays. She ended the recording and prepared for sleep. Tomorrow would bring more negotiations, more delicate political dancing. But it would be easier now. Humans had credibility, had weight in the discussion, all because sometimes you had to pull aside the scarf and show the dragon underneath. In orbit around the neutron star, the Valorian space station continued its rotation. Inside, 47 species contemplated their relationship with humanity and realized they'd made the classic mistake of judging a book by its cover. Or in this case, judging a species by its lack of natural weapons, short history, and diplomatic obscurity. They'd laughed at the human girl. Then she'd pulled her scarf aside, and the dragon tattoo glowed. And suddenly, no one was laughing anymore. Funny how quickly perspectives could change when you realized you'd catastrophically underestimated your opponent. Funnier still that humanity was willing to move past it, to build genuine partnerships despite the insults and discrimination. The galaxy was learning what humans had always known. Strength comes in many forms. Partnerships matter more than individual capability, and never, ever assume that the quiet species in the corner doesn't have teeth, especially when those teeth are ancient, fire-breathing, and entirely willing to make their presence known. The Galactic Superiority Summit would continue for another week. But everyone understood the real decision had already been made. Humanity wasn't going anywhere. They'd earned their place, paid their dues in patience and tolerance, and demonstrated that underneath the friendly diplomatic exterior was something far more formidable than anyone had suspected. And somewhere in her quarters, a young woman slept peacefully, a dragon tattoo glowing softly on her neck, a reminder that the universe was stranger and more wonderful than any species could fully comprehend, that ancient powers still walked among the stars, that humanity's greatest strength had always been their ability to make friends with beings that others would flee from in terror. They'd laughed at the human girl. It was the last time anyone made that mistake.